College life is a kaleidoscope of experiences, parties, laughter, and the pursuit of knowledge mixed with youthful naivety. The story I'm about to share was one of those nights that started out as carefree and fun but took an eerie and unsettling turn, leaving my friends and me haunted by an experience we couldn't explain. It was a crisp autumn evening, the leaves rustling in the cool breeze, as my friends and I gathered at Mark's off-campus house. Mark was known for hosting legendary parties, and this one was no exception. The keg was tapped, music was blaring, and the camaraderie was infectious. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as we celebrated the fleeting freedom of the weekend. As the night went on, our revelry escalated. The music grew louder and the laughter more boisterous. We raised our cups in toasts, and the evening seemed destined to be one for the books. Around midnight, as the party reached its peak, our friend Jenny, the life of the party, suggested we take the fun outdoors. We stumbled into the backyard, a sprawling space with an overgrown garden that lent it an enchanting but slightly eerie atmosphere in the moonlight. The night was clear, and the stars sparkled above us. We gathered in a circle, passing around a bottle of tequila, and shared stories, jokes, and secrets. The warmth of the alcohol and the bond between us made us feel invincible. As the night wore on, the air grew colder, and the darkness of the garden seemed to close in around us. The stories we had shared earlier began to feel more sinister in the stillness of the night. I couldn't help but glance at the old, gnarled trees that lined the yard, their branches casting eerie shadows that danced with the flickering candlelight. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine as an eerie, high-pitched scream pierced the silence. It was a sound unlike anything I had ever heard, an agonizing wail that seemed to carry a weight of suffering and despair. We all froze, the bottle of tequila dropping from our hands, the liquid spilling onto the ground. Panic seized us as the screams continued, each one more haunting than the last. The sounds echoed through the garden, bouncing off the ancient walls of the house, and it felt like they were coming from all around us, as if the very air was filled with the cries of the tormented. The party, which had been raucous just moments before, dissolved into chaos. People began to scatter, fleeing in every direction, their faces contorted with fear. I stumbled in the darkness, my heart pounding as I tried to make sense of what was happening. My friends, their eyes wide with terror, grabbed me, and together we sprinted toward the house. The old wooden doors creaked as we burst inside, and we slammed them shut behind us, locking out the nightmarish screams. The atmosphere in the house had changed. The once lively music and laughter had been replaced by a heavy silence. The antique furniture seemed to bear witness to our terror, and the dark, ornate mirrors reflected our ashen faces. What was that? What the hell was that? Mark's voice trembled as he spoke. Jenny, usually fearless, was pale and shaken. I have no idea, but it was like something out of a horror movie. We need to call the police. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. As I described the eerie screams and the chaos that had ensued, the dispatcher assured me that officers were on their way. The idea of the police coming to investigate gave us a glimmer of hope, but the terror still hung over us like a dark cloud. We huddled in the living room, clutching our cell phones, waiting for the sound of sirens. The minutes felt like hours as we listened to the silence outside, broken only by the occasional distant wail of sirens, growing louder. The police arrived, their flashing lights casting an eerie blue glow through the windows. As they entered the house, we hurried to explain what had happened in the garden. They listened intently, their expressions unreadable, before assuring us they would conduct a thorough search of the property. We watched through the windows as the officers fanned out into the garden, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Our hearts raced as we waited for any sign of what had caused the terrifying screams. The minutes ticked by, and the officers returned with no explanation. They assured us the area was clear, but the unease in their eyes was hard to ignore. What could it have been? Mark wondered aloud, his voice trembling. The police suggested that it might have been an animal, perhaps a fox or a mountain lion, but the unearthly quality of the screams seemed to defy that explanation. They promised to patrol the area for the remainder of the night, and encouraged us to stay inside, keep the lights on, and call if anything unusual happened. As the police left, the night seemed to stretch endlessly before us. We couldn't shake the fear that still gripped our hearts. The party that had begun with such carefree excitement had turned into a nightmarish ordeal, and none of us could make sense of the eerie screams that had shattered our merriment. We decided to stay together in the living room, the dim lights casting long shadows on the walls. Our eyes remained fixed on the old Victorian clock, the seconds ticking away with a disconcerting slowness. The garden outside, once so enchanting, now felt like a dark and treacherous expanse. The fear in the room was palpable, a heavy presence that seemed to press down on us. We spent the long hours of the night replaying the events in the garden, trying to rationalize what had happened, but the explanations eluded us. Dawn broke, and the first light of morning cast a pale glow through the windows. The fear that had gripped us throughout the night began to wane, replaced by a sense of exhaustion and confusion. We had made it through the night without any further incident, but the mystery of the eerie screams still haunted us. In the following days, we tried to put the experience behind us, dismissing it as a bizarre, unexplained event. The police never found any evidence of a trespasser or any creature that could have produced the haunting screams. Our friends and family offered their own theories, but nothing seemed to fit the eerie, unearthly quality of the sound we had heard. As time passed, the memory of that night became a hazy, half-forgotten specter. We returned to our classes, our routines, and our college life. Yet, the chilling sense of unease lingered, a reminder that sometimes the line between the real and the inexplicable is thinner than we'd like to believe. To this day, my friends and I still ponder the events of that night. The chilling screams that had sent us running in terror remained a mystery, an experience that defied explanation and left us with an enduring sense of the unknown. College life may be a whirlwind of adventure and excitement, but there are moments when the ordinary can take a turn into the extraordinary, and the mysteries that haunt old houses can become all too real. In the end, we may never know what happened that night, but the memories of the chilling screams will forever echo in our minds as a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling experiences are the ones that defy explanation. College life had always promised the allure of freedom, independence, and new experiences. But as I was about to discover, it could also bring with it a brand of terror that I had never imagined. My story begins with a simple desire to pursue higher education and ends with a chilling encounter that would forever change my perspective on safety and security. My college years were filled with the typical mix of academic challenges, newfound friendships, and raucous parties. The campus was buzzing with life, and the vibrant energy of young minds was palpable. My roommate, Jake, and I quickly bonded, sharing a passion for video games and late-night pizza runs. We spent countless hours together, and it wasn't long before we were closer than brothers. One chilly autumn evening, Jake and I found ourselves deep into a video game marathon, the sounds of gunfire and virtual explosions filling the room. We were completely engrossed in our own world when a loud, frantic knock at the door interrupted our game. Startled, I got up and opened the door to find our neighbor Lisa standing there, her face a mask of fear. "You guys have to come with me," she pleaded. "It's an emergency." Jake and I exchanged a puzzled look before following Lisa into the hallway. She led us through the labyrinthine corridors of the dormitory, her voice trembling as she explained that she had just witnessed something unsettling. "I was in the laundry room," Lisa began, "and I saw a man lurking around. He was acting so strangely, and he kept looking over his shoulder like he was hiding something. I'm sure he didn't belong here, and I got scared." Jake and I exchanged worried glances, and Lisa's concern was infectious. We decided to check out the laundry room, determined to ensure that no one was trespassing in our dormitory. As we arrived at the laundry room, a sense of unease settled over us. The room was empty, the dim overhead lights casting long shadows. We combed through the room, checking behind the washers and dryers, but found no sign of the mysterious man Lisa had described. We reassured her that it was probably a misunderstanding or a fellow student, and we returned to our room, convinced that we had diffused the situation. But as the days passed, an unsettling feeling gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. Lisa's fear had been genuine, and I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story than we had initially thought. I decided to do some research on my own, asking other students if they had experienced anything similar. What I discovered sent shivers down my spine. Several students had reported sightings of the same mysterious man, always lurking in the shadows, casting fearful glances around him. No one knew who he was, or what his intentions might be. But the sense of unease on campus was palpable. The university administration was alerted, and they began to take the situation seriously, increasing security patrols and issuing warnings to students. The campus police assured us that they were doing everything they could to locate the man and ensure our safety. But as days turned into weeks, the elusive figure continued to evade capture, and the fear among students only grew. One night, as Jake and I were returning to our dormitory after a late-night study session at the library, we heard an eerie sound echoing through the deserted campus. It was a sinister whisper, faint but unmistakable. We strained our ears, trying to discern the words, but they remained unintelligible, a chilling, unintelligible murmur. The voice seemed to be coming from the shadows, and as we peered into the darkness, we saw a figure moving along the tree line. Our hearts raced as we watched the silhouette, its movements erratic and unsettling. It was the same man Lisa had described, the man who had been lurking in the laundry room and casting fear over our campus. Fear welled up inside us, but a sense of duty propelled us forward. We followed the figure at a distance, keeping to the shadows ourselves, trying to maintain a safe vantage point. It became clear that this was not a fellow student, but someone who didn't belong on campus. The figure led us into a secluded area, and as we approached, we could see the glint of a knife in his hand. Panic surged through us as we realized the imminent danger. We knew we had to act quickly. As Jake and I crouched in the shadows, we watched the man approach a tree, and in the eerie moonlight, we saw him make a hasty and erratic mark on the bark. It was a crude symbol, a design that held a foreboding aura. Our eyes met, and we understood the significance of the symbol. It was a message, a warning, and a testament to the man's twisted agenda. Without a second thought, we decided to confront him. Our adrenaline surged as we closed the distance between us and the man. The sound of our footsteps broke the eerie silence, and the man turned, his eyes wide with fear and desperation. He backed away, the knife trembling in his hand, and we could see the wild look in his eyes. He was a man on the brink of something horrific, and we had stumbled upon his disturbing agenda. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, and we had unknowingly become his prey. As we approached, the man's fear transformed into a twisted grin, and he began to mutter incoherent words. It was clear that he was mentally unstable, and our presence only seemed to fuel his manic behavior. He brandished the knife, and our instincts took over. Jake lunged forward, wrestling the weapon from the man's hand, and I pinned him to the ground. We held him there, breathless and terrified, while we waited for the police to arrive. The man's words became increasingly unhinged, and he ranted about hidden messages, dark forces, and a sinister purpose that only he could understand. The police arrived and took the man into custody, and as they led him away, his wild, desperate gaze never left us. It was a chilling encounter that left us shaken, and the eerie whispers and symbols that had marked his presence lingered in our minds. In the days that followed, the full extent of the man's unsettling agenda became clear. He had been leaving cryptic symbols around campus, signaling a sinister message that only he could decipher. His intentions remained a mystery, but it was evident that he had posed a real and dangerous threat to the safety of the students. The campus was relieved to be free of the man's menacing presence, and the incident served as a chilling reminder that danger could lurk where it was least expected. The university took steps to enhance security, and students were urged to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity. The experience left me with a sense of vulnerability that I had never known before. It shattered the illusion of safety that college life had promised, and I couldn't help but wonder how close we had come to a sinister fate. The memory of that eerie encounter would forever haunt my college years, a stark reminder that sometimes the most unsettling horrors are those that hide in plain sight. The chill of a late autumn evening swept through the college campus as I stood outside of the dormitory, clutching my bags with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. It was the beginning of my freshman year, and like many students, I was filled with anticipation for the adventures and friendships that lay ahead. Little did I know that my college experience would take a nightmarish turn, one that I would never forget. My roommate Jason seemed pleasant enough when I first met him. He had a warm smile and a friendly demeanor, which put me at ease. Our initial conversations were typical college fare, classes, extracurricular activities, and the usual freshman excitement. I was relieved to have a friendly face to share the cramped dorm room with, given the stories of roommate conflicts I'd heard from friends. As the weeks went by, Jason and I settled into a comfortable routine. We shared our dreams and aspirations, laughed at each other's quirks, and supported one another through the challenges of our coursework. Our relationship seemed like a perfect start to college life, and I felt lucky to have such a great roommate. But beneath the surface, something sinister was lurking. It all began with subtle signs: the feeling of being watched, the odd sensation that someone had been in my room when I wasn't there. I dismissed these as the usual paranoia that accompanies the transition to college life. After all, the dormitory was a shared space, and people came and went all the time. One evening, I found myself scrolling through social media when a peculiar notification popped up on my phone. It was a message from an unknown account, and the message read, "I see you even when you don't see me." It sent a shiver down my spine, and I quickly deleted the message, convinced it was just a creepy prank. The following day, as I returned to the dorm room, I noticed Jason acting strangely. He was unusually quiet, his eyes darting around nervously. I couldn't help but feel that something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. When I asked him if something was wrong, he brushed it off, saying he was just tired and had a lot on his mind. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in my room again. My belongings seemed slightly rearranged, and my laptop had been moved from its usual spot. I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. The unsettling message, Jason's behavior, and the sense of invasion left me with a nagging suspicion. The next day, I decided to confront Jason. I wanted to address the issue openly, and honestly, to clear the air and get back to the friendly, open relationship we'd once had. But as I broached the subject, his demeanor changed. His eyes darkened with an unsettling intensity, and he became defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied, his voice tinged with hostility. "You're just being paranoid." I tried to push the issue, explaining that the messages and the feeling of being watched were becoming unbearable. But Jason remained evasive, deflecting my questions and insisting that I was imagining things. The conversation left me feeling frustrated and uneasy, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was overreacting. Weeks turned into months, and the strange occurrences continued. The sensation of being watched grew more intense, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was infringing on my privacy. My academic performance began to suffer as a result, and I was plagued by a sense of dread that accompanied me throughout my daily life. One night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep due to my growing paranoia, I decided to take action. I set up a hidden camera in our room, hoping to catch any evidence of the intruder. The next morning, I nervously reviewed the footage, and what I saw sent chills down my spine. The video revealed Jason's late-night activities. He had been entering my room while I slept, his face contorted with a mix of fascination and obsession. He would stand at the foot of my bed for hours, watching me as I slept, completely unaware of his presence. I immediately showed the footage to campus security, who launched an investigation into the matter. It was discovered that Jason had been using a spare key to enter my room and had become increasingly unstable. The university decided to relocate him to a different dormitory, and I thought my ordeal was finally over. But the nightmare was far from finished. As Jason was moved to another dorm, his obsession with me only grew. He began to send me disturbing emails in which he professed his undying love and desire to be close to me. The messages were filled with disturbing, possessive language that sent a chill down my spine. I reported the emails to campus security and the local police, but they told me there was little they could do without concrete evidence of a direct threat. My life had become a living nightmare, and I felt trapped in a situation that seemed impossible to escape. One evening, as I was studying in the library, I received a message from an unknown number. It contained a picture of me, taken from a distance, accompanied by the words, "I'm always watching." Panic surged through me, and I felt like a prisoner in my own life. Desperate for help, I confided in a close friend, Brandon, about my situation. He insisted that I stay at his apartment until we could figure out how to deal with the stalker. The sense of relief and safety I felt there was immeasurable. Brandon and I spent hours researching ways to protect myself and build a case against Jason. We contacted a private investigator who specialized in stalking cases, and they began to gather evidence against my roommate. Through their investigation, they uncovered a pattern of disturbing behavior that had gone unnoticed before. Jason had a history of stalking and had been expelled from his previous college for similar reasons. With this newfound evidence, the police were finally able to take action. A restraining order was issued against Jason, and he was barred from coming within a certain distance of me or contacting me in any way. The legal system had finally provided the protection I needed. As the semester drew to a close, I found myself free from the oppressive shadow of my stalker. I moved into a new dormitory, away from the haunting memories of that shared room. It was a relief to put the nightmare behind me, but the traumas of those months still lingered in my mind. I couldn't help but wonder how someone I had once considered a friend could become a relentless stalker. The experience had left me scarred, with a newfound awareness of the dangers that could lurk behind even the friendliest facade. My college horror story had unfolded within the walls of a seemingly ordinary dormitory, a chilling reminder that darkness can manifest in the most unexpected places.